Okay, with it being 6:35, I'd like to call the meeting of the Francis Howell School Board to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the agenda for August 19th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
Director Walker and Director Ziegelmeyer, I'm sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, 6-0. I'd like a motion to approve the July 15th, 2021 meeting minutes as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have recognitions. Ms. Joles.
Thank you, Mr. Hain. Tonight we are recognizing Salome Cummins, a fifth grader at Warren Elementary. Now, you may remember Salome from previous board meetings. She had participated in the National Braille Challenge for the past 4 years and formed an impressive winning streak during that time. But this year, she surpassed her previous achievements, winning first place in the overall national competition for her age group and also taking home the top prize in the spelling competition. I'd like to invite Salome and her teacher, Miss Lexi Tice, to the podium.
You're first. You're
I'm
gonna
going
do
to
great.
scoot you to my right.
You're gonna do great. Thank you. Here, you can put yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Lexi Tice. I've had the privilege of teaching Salome as her teacher of the visually impaired. I wanted to take some time to recognize Salome's hard work and dedication to her Braille literacy. The Braille Challenge is a competitive and timed competition that tests Braille skills in the area of reading, writing, spelling, and graphic interpretation. Salome took first and second grade, second and third grade, first and fourth grade with an additional Excellence in Spelling Award. These accomplishments prove just how hard she continues to work. With that being said, I also have to mention the effort that it takes to support Braille literacy in such a manner. Students who read Braille don't have the typical experience of driving down the road, seeing words on billboards, street signs, or even options in a food menu at a restaurant. Every piece of Braille under a kiddo's fingers early on are set there with intention. While it is Salome competing at the Braille Challenge, I have to tip my hat to Mr. and Mrs. Cummins for providing such an environment rich with Braille literacy as Salome's grown up. But who better to hear from than the expert herself? Here is Salome with the speech she's prepared on the importance of Braille. I'm going to adjust the microphone really quick, so it's going to be right next to your forehead. Yep, you're good. You don't have to yell. Just talk now.
Thank you. Throughout the years, blind people like me have found reasons to need Braille. Here are a few of mine. Can you write a story accurately when you can't see what you're writing? You could theoretically, but you wouldn't get too far. Sooner or later, you need to check back on what you've already written. You can't do that because you can't see what you've already written. And that is if you learn the whole print alphabet, and that in and of itself is a really hard task to accomplish for people who are blind. Braille has also allowed me to read textbooks with or without graphics. I've written an 84-page book and am working on a 35-page book. I am planning on making more, the lengths of which are yet to be determined. Reading and writing in Braille has also helped me navigate school when I don't know where to go. by reading the Braille on the room number plates. On the room number plate. It is possible to live when you are blind and do the same things as sighted people, but in my mind, Braille is a pretty big part of that. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we're moving up to patron comments. During patron comments, patrons and staff are invited to address the Board of Education. When I call your name, please come to the podium so everyone can hear. The board is interested in hearing the public's concerns and opinions. We do not respond to comments or questions during the meeting. Questions and concerns will be addressed by Dr. Hoven and other appropriate staff members at a later date. Please remember that comments must be limited to 3 minutes each per board protocol. Comments about personnel matters and remarks about or directed at individual employees or students are not allowed. And I'm not even going to read this other one. Everybody just be nice. So our first comment today is by Ken Gontards.
Last month, the superintendent said that the approval of the Black History and Black Literature courses was a great step toward creating better educational opportunities for our students, that he was proud that they were finally being offered and that they were an excellent addition to the Francis Howell School District. Mr. Haynes of the school board told us that the superintendent gave assurances that CRT would not be part of the Francis Howell curriculum and that he would work to ensure teachers would not integrate CRT into the course content. We reviewed the two courses, and here's what we found. In the Black History curriculum alone, over 250 occurrences of common CRT terms and themes were mentioned, including equity, oppression, revolution, riots, bias, intersectionality, whitewashing, and white privilege. This is what is being taught in these courses, that white people are unavoidably complicit in establishing dominance of racial groups over others, that they are effectively saying white people are racist because they are white. Regarding equity, they teach students' achievement is suppressed by white privilege, and they call white privilege must be confronted, and that the students' cultural realities and experience must be at the center of the teaching and learning. They pressure students into accepting that their country was founded on and remains a nation of white supremacy. This insistence of equity is aimed at convincing students that our constitutional republic, the greatest nation on earth, must be replaced with something radically different, Marxist socialism. Telling white students that they are inherently racist does not produce a secure environment of cooperation and mutual respect. Telling white students and their families that they are oppressors does not help in the development of self-confidence. Remember the September 2020 kickoff meeting video? We saw a Francis Howell school teacher who taught white privilege, speaking of the shame students felt because they are white. This is the pedagogy of CRT, of the American Marxism. It is what CRT looks like. It is their language. It is what they teach. Last month, LeGarrette King taught a week-long Black History course. Local teachers participated. We've seen them on Twitter. Did any of the Francis Howell school teachers attend? Will they be advancing these agendas into our schools? Dr. King has written, these thinkers of CRT seek to extend Marxist theory into changing the social, political, and economic landscape of this country. In his own biography, he proclaims he is an expert in critical race theory. The board needs to tell us and the parents of the Francis Howell School District what its understanding of CRT is. After all, you assured us last month that it will not be taught in our schools. You tell us what you mean by CRT. And for those who are interested with the concerns that we share, visit our PAC at Francis Howell.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Kirk Wolf.
I want to thank the board for this opportunity to comment. I'm a graduate of Francis Howell High School, starting the first grade at Becky David just after the Civil and Voting Rights Acts were passed. I received an excellent education. After attending Mizzou and UMR graduate school, my wife and I chose to live in this school district and start a successful business. Our 3 children attended school here, and my grandchildren are currently enrolled. For the many fine teachers that have served my family, I am sincerely grateful. But while I believe that most of our faculty are still excellent, we sadly have a very active and radical minority who are fully woke, who have been indoctrinated by the neo-Marxist ideologies that infect our universities. Last year, their national organization, the NEA, endorsed the promotion of critical race theory. We are being told that CRT is not being taught here, that these are not the droids you're looking for. Please, watch the video where the self-proclaimed CRT expert hired by this board, LeGarrette King, coaches our staff on his ideology and how to hide it from us. If you have doubt, read the first article in the course, written by him. Read the social justice survey that's being used in our middle school to recruit student activists. I heard last month at the board meeting that we need these courses because otherwise students won't learn that the founders owned slaves or about Jim Crow laws. Please, these things are already in our textbooks, they are already taught in our schools, and they should be. But in these new courses, there is a single underlying narrative. That is, the entire history of our country is based on a system of racism. Your child is automatically either oppressed or an oppressor based on the color of their skin. They may not be teaching critical race theory, but the narrative and ideology is undeniable. And now we hear that students that never chose these electives are being assigned to them. We've seen over the years how this board doesn't really care too much about how majority opinions our families are formed. You allowed Common Core curriculum without calling that. You announced a ridiculous mask mandate just before school starts. But the last straw is that you want to teach my grandchildren that they are oppressors based on the color of their skin. You are not teaching about racism, you are engaged in it. While it's important that we show up to these meetings and voice our opinion, it's not enough. We are to blame for what's going on because we let it happen when we allowed someone else to control the board elections. But we can fix it. Go to francishowfamilies.org, get involved, let's take back control of our schools.
Okay, our next speaker is Katie Rash.
This is about more than 2 electives. It is about the impropriety of teaching students they are inherently privileged or oppressed because of their race. It is about adults who think it is okay to talk about intimate aspects of identity with minors without the informed consent of parents. It is about the probability that what is elective today will become required tomorrow. It is about the impropriety of using a publicly funded school district to promote a socialist movement. It is about hiring a radical consultant to do an audit on all social studies courses, not just the electives. It is about the anti-US history teacher, but is more about the fact that any educator could say that crap in a meeting without being called out by the content leader or the curriculum director. It is about a board who declared a crisis of racism by resolution without providing supporting evidence and without clearly holding anyone directly accountable for that alleged racism. It is about a group of educators in the district, a small group, not the majority, who demonstrates a cult-like loyalty to promoting woke ideology in spite of the sincerely held concerns of many parents. It is about mirrors and windows. Yes, funhouse mirrors that give students a distorted or negative view of who they are, and peep show windows that give minor students a view into sexualized and developmentally inappropriate content. It is about the elimination of middle school challenge math classes for equity reasons. It is about good educators being rebuked for disagreeing and having a voice and a lack of even-handedness in that. It is about using the mantra better together to suppress the concepts of healthy skepticism and dissent. It is about waiting until the last minute to issue a mask mandate and not offering options like unmasked cohorts for parents who disagree with masking their babies for yet another year. That is what it is about, and here's what we're going to do about it. We have organized into a political action committee called Francis Howell Families. We are committed to a better and brighter future for Francis Howell School District. Our future is inclusive of all students and is supportive of good educators. Our future prioritizes academic excellence and opposes indoctrination. To our community, we invite you into this movement. Join us at francishowellfamilies.org to get started today with helping to build this better future. Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Gordon Midgley.
Thank you. Board member Mr. Hain last month said, quote, Dr. Hoven has assured us that CRT will not be part of our curriculum at Francis Howell. I will work to ensure that our teachers will remain unbiased and will not integrate CRT into the course content, unquote. Calling that into question is a Rumble viral video that shows district personnel plotting to CRT indoctrinate and hide it from the parents. In that video, the rogue personnel admitted they were enabled by the wording of the August 2020 board resolution on race. We parents and patrons have read with a fine-tooth comb the entire BHBL curriculum and readings on the district website, which shows numerous instances of how CRT neo-Marxist indoctrination elements did get into the curriculum. The district insists it did not, so we're at an impasse, with parents saying yes it is, and administration saying no it isn't. Who is gaslighting who? The good news is that we all agree that in this district, CRT neo-Marxist indoctrination shall not happen. However, since there's a question about whether or not it's in the curriculum already, I call on the board to pass the new resolution against racial division that was given to you last month, which stands against all racism, including the racism of CRT. If you're serious about not allowing CRT neo-Marxist indoctrination to sneak in, then you will pass that resolution to remove all doubt and to make it clear to all teachers with the weight of a board resolution. That is how you can effectively work to ensure that our teachers will remain unbiased and not integrate CRT, as the board publicly committed to do last month. The time is now. Pass the resolution. Another topic of the new mask mandate for K through 6 children. No, do not mandate masks. According to NIH studies, cloth masks don't work for the coronavirus. Leave it up to the parents to decide. It is especially egregious to target this for the youngest children who are least affected by the virus and the most damaged by the masks. The Ireland Department of Health released a balanced study showing the benefits do not outweigh the risks to young children. One final topic of COVID vaccine mandates that may be coming. There must be no coercion and no mandate. Those vaccines are experimental. Phase 3 clinical trials must be 2 years long, and we are only into year 1. Federal law says there must be a real option to accept or decline an experimental drug. It is also a violation of the Nuremberg Code that was an ethics document that resulted from the trial of Nazi war criminals from World War II. If these COVID vaccines do not go through their full 2-year testing, they are still experimental regardless of FDA approval status. If a COVID vaccine...
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay. Our next speaker is Lee Windmill.
I'm here to switch things up. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Lee Windmiller. My wife and I have 3 children that go to this school district. I want to start out by saying thank you for being here tonight with the intent of doing what is best for your community. You are not here what is best for what an individual group, but you are here for what is best for the whole district. On that note, I would like to briefly share my experience with COVID-19. Last September, I contracted coronavirus after attending a unmasked family gathering of 11 people. For 15 days, I ran a fever ranging from 100 to 104 that was while medicated. I developed all the symptoms of COVID, a terrible cough, intense migraine, extreme fatigue, and loss of taste and smell. Several of the 15 days, I was unable to leave the bed, even to go to the bathroom. Initially, myself and my wife, both 31 years old at the time, thought we, with no underlying conditions, thought we would be fine. It would be just like the flu. We were wrong. On day 16, when my fever broke and I was finally starting to get some of my energy back, I woke up from a nap with an intense pain in my left calf. After several days and many trips to the doctors, my wife drove me to the ER where I was diagnosed with a massive DVT extending from my mid-thigh to my ankle. I was given prescription blood thinners and told to return if I developed a fever or a cough. The next morning, I woke up with a cough, and by the end of the day, I developed a fever, and we headed back to the ER. Once admitted to the hospital, the doctors then diagnosed me, along with the DVT, with bilateral pneumonia and multiple pulmonary embolisms. When I asked them how many is multiple, they said we stopped counting after 14. For the next 6 days, doctors and nurses and medical staff worked tirelessly to help bring my body back out of what is called a cytokine storm. A cytokine storm is when an infection triggers your immune system to flood your bloodstream with inflammatory proteins called cytokines. Cytokines can kill tissue and damage your organs, which can lead to irreversible organ dysfunction and ultimately death if not controlled. I was one of the lucky ones. I was able to go home to my family on day 6. I was prescribed loads of medication that would get me through the next 6 months. Today, I'm standing here before you, a humble and healthier man, and I can tell you that it was not fun, okay? Here we are 17 months later, and I don't know what it would be like if it happened today. What I can say, though, is we can do what we can to wear masks, vaccinate those who can, and social distance. Thank you for mandating masks, and for those who cannot be vaccinated, we must listen to the infectious disease experts and require vaccinations, or require masks for all students. Thank you.
Okay. Our next. We'd like this to be productive for everybody, so they listen quietly while you were speaking. Everybody can listen quietly while they're speaking. Okay, we have the next speaker is Chris Cormier.
May I have your attention, please? I would like to start off by thanking everyone for coming out. This is my first meeting, but I can assure you it will not be my last. I would like to address the school board meeting about the mask mandate. As a veteran who served in the United States Air Force and sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution, this is against everything I stand for. It is against everything this country stands for. My country has promised me freedom of choice, and my religion, my God, has promised me free will. This mandate has none of these values. Let me make something very clear. Being anti-mandate is not being anti-mask. Just as passionate as you seem to be about these children's health, I am also passionate about their freedom. We the people. We the people have learned last year on what safety measures to take. We the people are capable of keeping our kids safe. We the people do not need a school board influenced by political views and a government influenced by social media. I see healthy children and I understand the risks, but it is our decision on how we want to approach them. I teach my son when to wash his hands and when to social distance and to wear a mask when needed. As you can see, your mandate is not needed. Respectfully, masks should be a choice, and I hope the board can see and have faith in its community that we the people will stay safe. We the people can and will make the right decision. My son, who's 9 years old, regardless of his age, sex, and religion, has just as much right to freedom of choice as anybody in this room. Thank you for your time.
Okay, our next speaker is Angela Quigley.
Hi, everybody. So I am the parent of a pre-K student in the district, and I am also here to speak on behalf of over 800 parents from a social media group. The stories and the background of our group members varies widely. We have parents of children with asthma or other chronic medical conditions. We have teachers who also happen to be caretakers for medically fragile family members. We have parents who are medical providers, and we have parents who just want their kids to be able to go to school, to have a chance to connect with peers and live their lives. These kids don't want to stay home. They want to be out in the world, learning, doing, and living. And we've all said time and time again that they need to be in school for mental health. And let's face it, there are kids in our district who, at least before COVID, were safer at school than in their own home. It's our responsibility as parents, as educators, and as the decision makers for this district to give them the opportunity to show up for class in the safest way possible. People on both sides of the issue all have stories and very personal reasons for being here. At the end of the day, you still have to make a decision, and so I'm going to leave the rest of the stories out, and I'm going to stick with the undeniable facts. Number one, the U.S. Department of Education published a roadmap to guide schools through the upcoming school year. Wearing a mask is part of that roadmap. On July 27th, the CDC updated its guidance to state that masking indoors is recommended regardless of vaccination status. Nowhere did it state that grades 7 to 12 should be exempt. Number three, in response to the CDC's updated guidance, the state of Missouri noted that decisions continue to be made here at the local level and that the school districts should collaborate with the local health department and consider local cases and transmission rates in order to determine whether students should wear a mask. Number four, the St. Charles County Health Department has provided the districts with a zoned recommendation chart which shows when masks should be mandated versus optional based on our current numbers. We're currently in the red here, in case anybody didn't know. So that means we should be wearing masks. And again, nowhere do they state that grades 7 to 12 are exempt from this recommendation. So if the Department of Education, the CDC, the St. Charles County Health Department, and countless medical providers have given their recommendations, then why is our elected Francis Howell Board of Education taking a different direction? The Francis Howell District is a public school district, and on behalf of more than 800 parents, I implore this board to follow public health recommendations.
Your time is up.
Okay, our next speaker is Jason Werner.
Dr. Hoven, ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Dr. Jason Werner. I'm a pediatric intensive care physician at Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital and an associate professor of pediatric critical care at the St. Louis University School of Medicine. I have 2 children who are students in this district. I wish to start by saying that my statement and the opinions I express are my own, and I do not speak for SLU or SSM Health. I'm speaking to you this evening to encourage the board to return to universal masking for students, faculty, and staff throughout the district. On August 16th, the Society of Critical Care Medicine published data from its registry of children hospitalized with coronavirus disease. 51 hospitals reported on 900 children being admitted from February 2020 through this January. 46% of children admitted to the hospital required the intensive care unit. 7% required medicine to support their heart function and maintain blood pressure. 8% of these children required a breathing tube and a ventilator. Nationally, at least 354 children have died from coronavirus. But we know how to prevent this. I personally have taken care of some of these children in our intensive care unit. These are healthy children who were all at risk of their lives. Some did die. We know how to prevent this. Aside from the health risks that they themselves face, these children have parents, friends, teachers, neighbors with whom they have the potential to infect. We are again beginning to see adult ICUs overwhelmed with patients with coronavirus disease. As of this morning, there are no ICU beds available in the entire state of Arkansas. Some of those adults passed infections to children, some were infected by them. The Broward County School District has lost 4 educators to coronavirus already this year. We know how to prevent this. Children need to be in school. Children need social interaction with families, and families need their children to be in school. Already this year, the Tampa district has quarantined 5,500 children within days of school starting due to potential exposure to coronavirus. We know how to prevent this. Currently, masks remain the strongest way to keep our children safe in school and out of my ICU. Without the very simple step of asking everyone in a Francis Howell building to put on a mask, the unnecessary risk to which students are exposed goes up dramatically. Some of these students will get needlessly sick. Some of those students who could have otherwise been in school will need the ICU. Ladies and gentlemen, I am begging you, put me out of business. This is a moral responsibility that you hold. We know how to prevent all of this. You must reinstitute masking for all.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay. Come on, people. Can't we just have a civil discussion here? We'll try this one more time. If it continues, we'll just suspend the comments for the rest of the evening. Jarrett Pillsbury.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jarrett Pillsbury. I'm a parent of two children in the district. Thank you for allowing me this time. I have so much to say, so little time. First, I want to begin with this, and I didn't know if I was going to the beginning of the order or the end, so you get it now versus earlier. There is an immense amount of disinformation swirling around the internet, the news media, you name it. And you, as the board, have a responsibility to fact check everything that is said here tonight and in future patron comments. I implore you to do so. Board, you told patrons last year the mitigation steps and tools you put in place, including mask mandates and universal masking, worked to keep the learning environment well protected and prevented Francis Howell from becoming a major source of outbreak. A very impressive feat considering one of the more conducive places for a COVID hotspot to occur matches conditions for the school environment. You showed with the right set of tools that schools could be made low risk. Here in 2021, with the school year about to start, we're facing a 4th wave of COVID that includes the new Delta variant. Case numbers and hospitalizations are on the rise, and much has changed for the worse, as the doctor just told us. Since the July meeting, when the decision was made to go mask optional, a decision which will effectively blunt one of the major tools to protect our community, we are choosing against our own interests. We are making silly decisions here. We have proof that it works. And on August 12th, you announced children in K through 6 would universally mask, while those in higher grades would be strongly encouraged but not required to do so. A measure, yes, but a half measure to be sure. A few weeks ago, I published a petition in support of universal masking for grades K through 12 in Francis Howell schools. That petition has generated over 1,800 signatures and well over 100 comments in support. And if you support that now, or you supported it then, I'd ask you to please stand with me now so I can thank you. Thank you very much for your support. What are we asking for in this petition? In short, a small amount of inconvenience and lots of benefits. We have lots of small inconveniences to allow the school to fulfill its purpose. Freedom of speech, schedules, medications, no weapons, prohibiting certain foods, dress codes. Plenty of things that are in the rule book so that kids can go to school and the school can teach and teach children, and they can learn. I want to speak just a moment about my child. She's had various mask-related camps this summer, one where there was mask optional, and another where there was mask mandatory. In the mask optional environment, my child endured peer pressure and bullying from her choice to wear the mask and feel safe. In the mask mandatory environment, there was no drama whatsoever. The teachers have enough on their plates. Mask mandatory makes classroom management straightforward. All of the supporting evidence, all the guidance, all of the medical expertise, the consensus points to universal masking. We recently saw in KSDK reporting 450 local doctors pushing for universal masking. In short, a protected environment is what we seek. Thank you.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Okay, and we have Eric Jenkins.
My name is Eric Jenkins. I have 4 children in the school district. I'm a physician. I'm not here to argue the already proven efficacy of masks. Masks were mandatory during the school year last year for many good reasons. The question at large isn't whether or not masks work, but whether or not the current situation warrants mandatory masking. I understand no one wants to wear masks. It's an emotional topic. However, let's remove emotion and look at just the facts. I have over 11 years of experience working as a critical care physician in a local ICU caring for the sickest of the sick. We are fighting to save people being ravaged by COVID. All the ICUs in the region are beyond capacity. Last Monday, my hospital refused 15 outside hospital ICU transfers because we were full. We have received calls from Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, and Illinois. There simply are not enough beds nor nurses to care for the sick. Why? Aren't we supposed to be winning this? The vaccine is available, and the CDC previously said vaccinated individuals don't need to mask anymore. How can it be this bad? Unfortunately, the Delta variant of COVID-19 has changed everything. Delta is now responsible for more than 80% of infections in the US. Delta is twice as contagious as the original strain of COVID. People who are infected carry 1,000 times more virus and for longer than those infected by the original virus. This makes Delta more transmissible than Ebola or smallpox, or similar to chickenpox. Delta illness is also more severe and affects people at younger ages. Most COVID ICU admissions are now aged 30 to 70 years of age. That is us and most of the teachers and parents in the district. Pediatric hospitalizations are also increasing. People infected with Delta are roughly twice as likely to be hospitalized. In our ICU, we had a 36-year-old die 2 weeks ago, and we have 2 41-year-olds currently on maximum life support. The CDC is showing that those that had a previous COVID infection are in fact able to get infected with the new Delta strain. They showed that previously infected and yet unvaccinated individuals are twice as likely to get infected with Delta as those that are vaccinated. Claims that people could only get infected with COVID one time are not true. This means even those that have had COVID should wear a mask to prevent reinfection with the Delta variant. And unfortunately, vaccination does not provide full protection against Delta. An Israeli study shows that the Pfizer vaccine provides only 39% immunity against Delta. That is a lot lower than the 95% immunity against the original COVID strain. We're seeing somewhere between 20 and 33% of patients being admitted with COVID are fully vaccinated. Additionally, a new CDC study showed that those that are vaccinated and yet become infected carry the same amount of virus as those that weren't vaccinated. We need to follow the universal masking mandate.
Your time is up.
Okay, that concludes our patron comments section. FHEA.
Good evening, board members, cabinet, and the community. My name is Anita Keener, and I'm the president of FHEA. I'd like to start off by welcoming everyone back to another school year. A special welcome to all of those new to the district. This is a district that we have always been proud to work in. We have worked hard to give our students the very best education that they deserve. Last year was tough for many reasons, but staff pulled together to make it the best experience our students could have. COVID tried to knock us down, but we refused to allow it to affect the education that our students deserve. Negotiations was one of the toughest ones we've had because administration also tried to knock us down. And instead of building bridges, administration continues to try to knock us down. But we will land on our feet and continue to make this the best district it can be. You see, staff plant their roots and stay for long periods of time. That is not always true with central office administration or board members. Some board members tried to knock us down, but they too failed. Ms. Helper, I'd like to apologize for sunshining another 2 years of email communications of the board or cabinet. This time you could have used in your new position, but one board member is still telling folks we didn't request a wide enough scope on our first request, so we had to ask for 3 years. And those results were 2 patrons in 219 asked about the release time. 2019, 3 years ago, 2 people, one of which administration doesn't always answer because the emails that he sends are demeaning and hateful. So again, the administration claimed that one of the reasons for removing the release time for the FHEA president was due to a patron comments. The sunshine request begs to differ. So Ms. Walker, was our scope big enough this time? FHEA knows that it is going to take years to repair the damage that has been done. The trust level is just not there anymore. But we must begin somewhere and at some point, so FHEA requested a meeting to discuss ESSER 3 funds as stated in the law. What are we waiting for? As the FHEA president, I have had a fob that has access to all the buildings so that I can meet with members. I found out a few weeks ago it has been disconnected, giving me access.
Thank you. Your time is up.
FHSD.
Good evening, Board of Education, Cabinet, and community members. FHSD would like to take this time to thank the Board Administration and FHEA for negotiating in-building work time in place of the kickoff. While the kickoff was nice, it left out much of the support staff. For administrative assistants, nurses, custodians, maintenance, grounds, we either couldn't go because there was too much work to still be done in the buildings preparing for school, or it took you away from work that needed to be done. For our paras, it was not a required work time, it was optional. They could come on their own and be paid, but it still left them feeling unimportant that they weren't required to be there. One downside of not having the kickoff is this means there is no raffle to raise funds for Friends of Children. For those that don't know what this organization is, it was developed by FHEA to help families that have had unforeseen emergencies that might just need a little help. In the past, it has helped families displaced from a fire, the death of a parent, and so forth. I encourage parents and the community to contribute to this fund and for staff to make even a small donation from each paycheck to help replace this raffle. Even $1 a paycheck can help. We also appreciate the district following the CDC guidelines in protecting our young, vulnerable children who can't be vaccinated by requiring masks while cases are rising. We hope everyone has a great start to the 2021-2022 school year. And at this time, we would like to yield the rest of our time to FHEA.
We don't yield, do we? I don't believe we don't yield time.
So we don't use Robert's rules, or like we don't do what the Senate does? So we just...
No.
Excuse me.
Look. Everybody needs to just take a step back. We do not yield time. Okay, next topic is the MSBA August Board Report.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report for the month of August. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at efforts to provide greater internet access to students throughout Missouri. Currently, about 23% of Missouri students lack internet access at home, while 84 school districts report students lack physical access to broadband. The Director of Broadband Development for the state of Missouri, Tim Arbeiter, told an audience at MSBA's recent Igniting Great Ideas Summit, both infrastructure and affordability are barriers to access for many students and families. Arbeiter says school boards can play an important role in improving internet access by partnering with others in their community.
But sometimes, as leaders, you just need to take the bull by the horns and say, what do we need to do to come alongside maybe our city manager, our presiding commissioner, and a few other folks to help maybe strategize as a team, how do we motivate, incentivize, and attract a provider? Because there are areas in our state where there is none or only one provider, and it makes it an extreme challenge.
Arbeiter says there are a number of state and federal programs now in place aimed at expanding broadband access in Missouri. Applications are opening this month for grants aimed at addressing the teacher shortage in Missouri. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education has designated more than $50 million in coronavirus relief funds to establish teacher recruitment and retention grants for school districts. The goals of the grants include attracting more people to the teaching profession and providing greater support for current teachers to improve retention. DESE Assistant Commissioner Paul Katnick tells us he hopes many of the grants will be used to expand what are known as Grow Your Own programs aimed at encouraging high school students to become teachers.
Future Missouri teachers are sitting in Missouri school districts right now. That's where they're going to come from. And we've talked to way too many high school kids in school districts who never consider the teaching profession because no one's asked them if they would ever consider it. No one has said to a student, you would be a great teacher. I mean, you love math, you're good at it, you'd be a great math teacher. And we're not talking about valedictorian straight A students. Sometimes students that work hard in school make great teachers. And we as a profession have to think some succession planning here about furthering the profession after we're done.
Katnick says recruiting and retaining teachers must be a community effort.
It's not just a teacher who's agreed to run some club. It's a community effort because when a school can't find teachers, and we had examples of that this year where schools went virtual because they didn't have enough teachers, that impacts the whole community. So everybody in a community ought to care about this issue and band together and help support it. That's when it works at its best. That's what we've seen in districts with long-running programs. The entire community embraces it, and I just think school board members have such an important role in making it a priority, supporting superintendent and the school personnel and making it happen, making it work.
Katnick says Missouri's teacher shortage has only become worse during the COVID-19 pandemic, and that he has yet to talk to a school district leader who isn't facing teacher vacancies heading into the new school year. Registration is now open for the 2021 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators to be held November 5th through 7th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature numerous breakout sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, along with a great lineup of general session speakers, all in a new location at the Kansas City Convention Center. Among the general session speakers this year is Gene Becker, a Missouri Public School graduate who served as President George H.W. Bush's chief of staff from the time he left office until his death in 2018. And don't forget the 2021 Safe Schools and Colleges Forum, sponsored by MSBA's Center for Education Safety, that will be held this year on November 4th in conjunction with the annual conference in Kansas City. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Okay, next up on the agenda is our Prop S update. I believe that's Mr. Klein and Mr. Bettler.
Good evening, Board. I'm happy to be here again to share what's been happening with Prop S projects. It's been an extremely busy summer and productive summer for us. Just some recaps of some of our projects. We'll talk about Becky David, our paving projects, of course, the new Francis Howell North, our security vestibules, and 801 corporate. So if you remember, I've talked to you before about Becky David. We basically did a complete rehab and took out their entire HVAC system and replaced it with a completely new one. We replaced the boiler loop so there'll be no more raining in the hallway and disruptions to the learning environment. We continued with the LED lighting upgrades this summer that we started back during spring break, where we replaced all the classroom lighting with LED lighting. We also replaced it in all of the hallways and common areas throughout the school. New sound panels, and then some fire safety, and of course the security vestibule that's in progress. The pictures that you see before is kind of on the before side, is midway through the project. As I told you last time, I started off and it was like war zone Becky David, but we have turned it around and it is a fresh new look. It was nice to have teachers back this week and in the building to see the work that accomplished over the summer in their building. I want to thank Jill and her team and the rest of the Becky David staff teachers for allowing us to get in there this summer and do this much needed work. It was a little bit taxing on them to have to vacate their building almost immediately on that last day of school, but they did it and we were able to turn it around and get them a nice new fresh looking building for this academic school year. Paving work, we did paving at Francis Howell Central, Sager, and Bryan Middle. And so on the left-hand side, you'll see kind of the before of what the Francis Howell Central Sager parking lot looked like. There was a lot of cracking. If you've ever ridden it before, we did our work this summer. There was some big potholes that had to be filled year after year. We added some drainage. We added our new technology of the glass pave and glass grid that was introduced to us through Weiss Design Group. We did some curb work and some new striping, and you can see on the after, this is right before we striped it, but same image from our before image there. Much more smoother. If you've ridden it or if you've driven it lately, it's like riding on a cloud. That new technology that we've used will help us extend our life of our asphalt, but also gives it the same strength, almost like concrete. So it's a nice new ride into Sager, Bryan, and Francis Howell Central. A lot of folks that have driven it have noticed that work that's been done and are appreciative of what's happened over the summer. Francis Howell North, this has been an exciting project and it's been moving very fast. So we have begun our weekly meetings in the construction trailer. There's been a lot of work that's happened, a lot of dirt that's been moving this summer. I'm going to show you a couple pictures here. So you can see the south view of the construction site. You can see the ring where the football stadium used to be, and then where our practice fields were just up above the stadium there. You can see where the building pads are starting to take shape. We've started the retaining wall, and what you see there is at the far end of the property towards the tennis courts, where the new tennis courts will be. That retaining wall will be about 25, 30 feet, and they're about halfway done with that piece there. This is the upper pad, so where the upper practice field was. You'll see where it's got a lot of the rock placed in. I talked to you last time that we have several thousand truckloads of rock coming in, and we'll have that completed before school starts. But they've done the upper pad and they're working on the lower pad, and just this week as we were out there, you can kind of start to see the footprint of what will be the new building. I'm going to turn it over to our consultant, project manager from Atlas Building Group, Jeremy Bettler, to talk a little bit about the CMAR process, just to kind of give us a refresher of what that is.
Good evening, board. Thank you, John. I just wanted to spend a couple moments tonight to talk a little bit about CMAR. CMAR stands for Construction Manager at Risk. It was the way in which the board and the district decided to do the construction at Francis Howell North. SM Wilson is the company that we engaged with to do that work. They've been a great teammate so far. Can't speak highly enough about their work and all the stuff that they've brought to the district. The board has started to see packages trickle in about the last 4 to 5 months. I know you approved some grading packages, some site utility packages, some concrete packages. There's actually a precast package tonight that we have for approval. And I want to make sure the board understands how that process actually works, just to go in a little more depth with that. So we don't have the entire job drawn yet. So the architects are still working on it. We're about 4 to 6 weeks away from having the final set of drawings for the whole thing. So what we're doing is bidding this job out in packages. SM Wilson will go out to the public. They'll request bids for a specific package. Everyone can bid it. It's a public opening with Mr. Klein and myself and the representatives of SM Wilson. They then take those bids back. They do a interview process, and they write a recommendation letter to us of who they recommend for us to engage to the work with. The board and the district's contract actually is just with SM Wilson. So you actually are approving amendments to their base contract when those come up. And then once all those amendments are added up, we'll have our final GMP, or guaranteed maximum price, for the construction. So after tonight, and there's a steel package that'll be coming in a couple weeks to the board, we're probably somewhere between 20 to 25% of the project bid out. In the next, around October, the board could anticipate the meat of the project actually coming to them for approval. So this will be all the remaining packages after the steel comes in a couple of weeks. This will be finishes, masonry, exterior work. And then once that's completed, we will have our GMP price. So that will be a big package that's coming to the boards, tens of millions of dollars. And we anticipate that happening sometime in October. So the other thing I want to speak on is just how great this process has been. If you can imagine, if we used the traditional design, bid, build system, which is you finish drawings, you bid the job out, we probably would be bidding out this work sometime in about 6 to 8 weeks. Then we would have to bid it, then we would have to award it, and then we could actually start construction. So you'd be looking at a project start date of sometime in early 22. Obviously, if you go to the site now, we're 6 to 8 months ahead of that. Grading has begun. Concrete is getting ready to start on Monday. So it really has been a great benefit to the district on the schedule and the procurement of materials. So I just wanted to point that out and maybe, kind of give the board a little more depth to this process. I know you guys have seen a lot of amendments coming, and just wanted to try to explain a little better what's going on and what you can look for in the future. So, John?
Thank you, Jeremy. All right, moving on to our security vestibule. So we started a massive project this summer with 13 schools receiving their security vestibules. Here's just a couple images. So Francis Howell High was our only high school that didn't have a security vestibule. So that was added, and that project is completed this summer. You'll see also the new transaction window at Howell Middle. And then as we have talked about this over the summer, we were watching a lot of material delays, things related to the COVID shutdown. And one of the things that we've told you about is the steel and metal side of things. And so this project has been impacted somewhat by that. We are still in the process of waiting for the interior set of doors related to our security vestibule project. It's not going to displace anything for a lot of our schools, except for 2, possibly 3. We're hoping tomorrow. We've heard word that the Warren entry doors and their second set of doors are in, and so the plan is to get those in tomorrow and over the weekend so that we're ready for Monday. If they are not in tomorrow, we will go ahead with what we are doing at Bryan and Sager with a temporary door setup. And so to kind of give you an image of what that looks like, this is Sager with their temporary door system. You can see the new security vestibule space to the left in this image, and then their temporary doors. Those are hollow metal doors that are there. They are working with the operator. It is safe and secure. We've also worked with the local fire marshals for the respective schools and had them look at what we created as a temporary. Where you see wood around these doors would actually be glass panels that would go around the doors there. Again, these are temporary, and so as we have been working with Hoff, which is our contractor for this, we've identified that, of course, as doors come in, we want to prioritize Bryan and Sager to both receive their exterior set of doors so that we can get away from the temporary setup. But in the interim, the schools are secure, they're safe. We've had the fire marshals from both areas of the respective jurisdictions there review these temporary doors. They've approved it, so we will be ready for the start of school on Monday. Moving on and wrapping up here is just 801 Corporate. As you know, we purchased that property and we've been moving forward. We have landed on our floor plan of where things are going to lay out in the building. Very excited about that. We have started to do an electrical evaluation of the building. We've been doing an HVAC evaluation, and then we are starting the process of our MAP drawings with our architects for this project. We are also working with the City of O'Fallon, and I'm pleased to report this evening that we got our initial permit passing with the City of O'Fallon, agreeing to how we interpreted the codes for the project that we're working on, which was a big deal because if they didn't agree with it, it could cause some big cost impacts for us, but they did agree with our interpretation of the use of the building. So we have that in writing, so we'll be able to start moving a little bit more faster on this project and get that moving pretty quickly here, and looking to complete that here into the next year. And then just a reminder with the construction industry that we're constantly watching the market. We're using our partners and our consultants to help advise the district the best time of when to reach out and to make purchases. You know, with the COVID pandemic, it has impacted all markets, and so, you know, there is direct impact to the cost of construction and our schedule. One of the things that we are watching with the North Project is that when we learn about the steel, we'll also learn kind of how that will impact the timeline, because there is, like I said, delays within the steel market. But we are watching that closely, and we'll continue to keep you and everyone informed as to how that proceeds and how those impacts on future projects. We've already also begun the future planning for our summer projects. We're working with our facilities committee and looking at what those projects might look like. So we're already planning for another busy and exciting summer coming ahead, and also continuing with our regular daily work. And so I'll ask if there's any questions that the board might have at this time for myself or Mr. Bettler. Well, that's good. We have quite a few more dump trucks coming before school starts. And speaking about that, we also are going to have some additional personnel like I talked about last time. We've created a video to kind of help guide families, students, and staff about the new entryway, because we've divided the road so there's a construction side and then there's what we call the regular school traffic side. We're going to have additional personnel out for the next few days when school starts for both opening and closing of schools, just to help folks get used to the traffic pattern, because it is a little wonky coming in and immediately going to the left and then coming back out the same way. We've also increased our signage to help folks visually see how that new path is going to work there.
Any other questions? Okay, I want to thank you guys for the presentation and that, and thank you for communicating with our buildings and keeping everything going throughout the summer. I know we have people in these buildings all summer long, and it's been a big job for you guys to keep the process going and keep them updated, so thanks for your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is our COVID-19 update. Is either Dr. Rumpus or Dr. Hoven?
Dr. Rumpus is going to start us off here, and then I'll pick up when he's finished. Good evening, board members. We are going to present tonight as we prepare for our first day of school here next Monday to provide an overview of the mitigation strategies. Somebody else's microphone. An overview of the mitigation strategies and protocols that we have in place throughout the district. To begin the school year. All right, we'll try this one. Tonight really is just an overview at a high level. On our district website, you will see our entire return to school plan, which has been updated for the 2021-2022 school year. It goes into significantly more detail. Also on the COVID section of the site, you're going to find our frequently asked questions and additional protocol and guidance that we provide there. It's also where you will go for updates throughout the school year. Starting with masks, we did announce last Thursday that masks will be required for students pre-K through 6th grade throughout the district, recognizing our youngest learners are not yet eligible for vaccination. Masks will be required for these students while indoors, except for when they're eating lunch. We will also be requiring masks for all staff working with our pre-K through 6 learners when social distancing of 6 feet is not possible. As we did last week, we will continue to strongly encourage masks for all of our students and adults in 7th through 12th grades when indoors throughout the entire district. Masks remain optional for students and staff when outdoors, which has been our protocol since the start of summer school. This throughout the day will allow for multiple mask breaks for our youngest learners with multiple recess opportunities throughout the day, lunch, outside PE, and then other mask breaks that can be provided as necessary for individual students by our teachers. Masks will continue to be required at this time for everyone on school buses, regardless of age or vaccination status, and that is based on federal order. We will continue to reevaluate this guidance on a regular basis. One of the concerns we've heard is that it would be in place all year and not discussed. As we will share, we do have an end date for evaluating the start of the school year and making decisions from moving forward throughout the year. Other mitigation strategies that we do have placed that are very similar to last year, we are continuing to distance our students as much as possible. We have a goal and believe we can reach 3 feet in most situations in all instructional settings, often more. And in certain circumstances, such as our music, our choir classes, our band classes, we'll seek to have even greater distance because of the nature of those classes. We have consistent seating charts with assigned seating throughout all instructional areas and on our school buses. And that's true for our students as well as for adults in different meeting situations and professional development to support contact tracing should there be a positive case. Starting the school year, we are limiting visitors to our buildings. We do recognize the importance of having volunteers, especially when we talk about certain academic interventions and supports. There are other meetings and events that will take place where it would be necessary to have volunteers or visitors, and we want to give our principals the ability to approve people in that situation, but it will be limited. We will continue having breakfast in the classrooms this year, just like we did last year. We also recognize the importance of hand sanitizing and cleanliness in our buildings. We'll continue to provide hand sanitizer in all of our classrooms throughout our buildings. Our custodial teams did a fantastic job last year with protocols they have in place for daily cleaning, and when we have positive cases in our buildings, they have deep cleaning protocols that they utilize. Of course, hand washing is something easy that we can all do and we need to remind ourselves of for both adults and students, simple hygiene protocols such as that, and we'll take it seriously, reminding people to do that often. And the last thing is the importance of self-screening. The best way to keep COVID out of our schools is not allowing it into our schools in the first place, and we do that by staying home if you're experiencing any of the symptoms until you've been symptom-free for at least 24 hours. Francis Howell will continue to work with the County Health Department when it comes to contact tracing. We do the tracing internally. We have a fantastic team of administrators, our COVID coordinators, and our nurses who work together when we learn of a positive case in our building to determine who the close contacts have been in those situations. We provide that information to the county, who then follows up with official guidance to families around the length of quarantine and release from quarantine. We reach out and personally call the parents or guardians of any student who has been exposed to a positive case and who needs to quarantine because they've been considered a close contact. We also then follow up with emails to them with additional instructions. And then anyone who is a contact, we send a general email to, as well as to all the staff within the building, and we'll continue with that communication. We are aware of other districts that are shifting or asking the county to take on all that contact tracing responsibility. It is a burden to do the tracing within the district, but we also recognize that the county health department does not have the capacity to trace all of the cases in the entire county. And if we were to give that responsibility fully to them, their response is that we would have classrooms full of students who would just be sent home until they can try and figure out who may or may not have been a close contact. By us taking responsibility for doing that initial tracing, we're able to only send home the group of students or staff who may have directly been a close contact and keep others in our schools. So for the time being, we continue to take on that responsibility. We will also continue to maintain the weekly dashboard that we had up last year. We'll be updating that for this school year, and it will be showing our positive cases as well as the close contacts and students and staff who might be quarantined because of COVID. And our hope is that that will be updated in use again a week from tomorrow, the end of our first week of school. Just to remind you a little bit about the quarantine process and guidelines, we do follow the St. Charles County Department of Public Health quarantine guidelines when it comes to length of quarantine. A standard quarantine is a 14-day quarantine from your date of exposure to a positive COVID case. Last year, the county implemented options for shorter quarantines under certain circumstances. A quarantine can be 10 days when the close contact remains symptom-free throughout the entire 10 days, and then on day 11, they're allowed to return to school or work. That can be shortened a little bit further to 7 days, allowing the person to return to school or work on day 8 if they receive a negative COVID test from a medical provider that's done on day 5 or later. So an individual who is a close contact has the option of which one of those that they would like to do when they would like to return to school or to work. Up until about 24 hours ago, we did not believe we had the option for modified quarantine that we had last school year. So we were starting with only what is called the K-12 school exception that's in place. The CDC pushed it out in July, and the county also adopted it. What that exception said was that if a student was a close contact to a positive case from 3 to 6 feet, and both the positive case and the close contact had on a mask, that the student, although they would be considered a close contact, they would not have to quarantine. They'd be able to continue to go to school and participate in activities outside of school, normal life at home. About 24 hours ago, yesterday evening, we learned that that was going to be extended to also include staff and teachers in our buildings. So anyone from 3 to 6 feet, when both the positive case and the close contact were fully masked, they would be able to continue coming to school or work, and even though they are close contact, they would not have to quarantine. In that same notification from the county last night, they also let us know that they are going to continue modified quarantine this year. What modified quarantine does is it allows a close contact to a positive case from 0 to 3 feet when both the positive case and the close contact were fully masked. That individual can continue coming to school or work. The difference is from 0 to 3 feet under modified quarantine, you're still placed under quarantine by the county, meaning outside of the school day, you're expected to remain at home and under quarantine. Students in those situations are not able to attend after-school activities or sports for the duration of the quarantine, but they are allowed to attend during the school day. So the practical application of both of those, the modified quarantine from 0 to 3 feet, and then the school exception from 3 to 6 feet, is very similar to how we ended last school year, where if both parties are masked, the positive case and the close contact, from 0 to 6 feet, they're able to continue coming to school. And what that will allow us to do is keep as many students as possible in school receiving instruction, as many of our teachers and staff in our buildings providing that. Currently, the best way to avoid quarantine if you are 12 years old or older is that if you are a close contact and you are fully vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine at all as long as you remain symptom-free. And so we will work with parents and guardians and the county to determine if somebody is in fact fully vaccinated to allow them to stay. As I said at the beginning, these protocols are currently in place through September 17th. That gives us the first 4 weeks of school, allowing us to review our local data and at that time make a determination. Would we extend this current mask requirement? Would we expand the mask requirement to include all of our students and staff in the district based on our local data? Or would we fully lift the mask requirement for some or all grade levels, trying to respond as close as possible to the specific grade level, building or age where we might be seeing some cases.
All right, so thank you. At this point, I'm going to go through some of the COVID data that we can cover for our district and for our region. So at all times, you're able to go onto the county website and look at more comprehensive numbers as well. I don't have all of that covered here. The theme of what we're going to show in this data tonight. Yep. The theme of what we're going to show tonight is going to show kind of two parts. One is a case of optimism, and one is a case to remind us that COVID is still out there and we still need to be keeping an eye on it and have some reasons for concern as well. The first thing I want to talk about is we've heard conversations about hospitalizations, especially as they pertain to younger children. And we are hearing that across the country in our region, it is a different story now for kids than it was a year ago or than it was during last school year. So we did seek that information out, and at the time being, we've got some very positive information from the county executive's office just a couple of days ago. We were told that our county has 62 total individuals hospitalized for COVID, and of those 62, 0 of them are in the 0 to 19 age range. And so that's not a statement that we can guarantee that remains true. It's not a statement that it's not happening around our region overall and around the country, but for us at this time, the information that we've received is that we have zero school-age students are in the hospital for COVID. So reason for optimism there, but also something we want to keep an eye on. Within our district, we wanted to talk about what do we currently know. And full disclosure, when we talk about this date, we don't have students in school yet. And so it's very likely that we have some cases that parents have not informed us of because their students aren't missing school and there's no reason to let us know, and we fully understand that. What we do know is that we currently have 12 current positive cases. 7 of those are among students. And again, we're only for sure going to know about those right now if they're coming onto our campuses in some capacity. Might be vacation station, it might be high school sports and other activities, anything that is bringing students in where we will find out if they are positive. So 7 total students at the moment. We have about 2,700 students coming onto our campuses every day. So to put that in context, only 2,700 cases is quite a bit bigger than any of our high schools, 2,700 total students. And at the moment, only 7 positive cases out of that group of 2,700 students. So again, reason for optimism there. We're not seeing a high number of positive cases among the students who are currently coming onto our campuses, but it's also not gone. We do see that there are cases of COVID. We do still have to, as Dr. Rumpus mentioned, we still have to contact trace. We will still have to understand how many close contacts and potential quarantines result from those. Fortunately, at those high school levels with those sports and activities, many of the close contacts have been vaccinated, and so we haven't had to send as many students home as we might have had to do a few months ago before the vaccines were available for those age groups. You can also see among our staff, all of our staff are back now, and we do start to find out again. Our staff throughout the summer may not have informed us if they were positive. We do know about that now. So out of roughly 2,500 employees, only 6 are currently positive. You can see 1 at the high school level, 4 at the middle school, and 1 at the elementary. 3 of those, we found out when they were supposed to return back to work, they let us know they couldn't because they were currently positive for COVID. So again, optimism in the sense that the numbers are not terribly high, but also a reminder that we still have COVID out there and we still need to be keeping an eye on things. The next piece, and this is the graph taken right off of our county website. This shows the daily, it's a 14-day moving average of daily new cases. So there's lots of different data points you can look at. This is one that you can see at the very beginning of the graph. That goes way back to the very beginning of the pandemic. So you saw a very flat graph until we hit the summer. Then we saw an increase that leveled out, and then of course you have the really high numbers in November and into the winter. Coming into this summer, we saw a great trend from about January forward of a significant decrease in the numbers of COVID cases. It stayed very, very low through most of the summer, but as you can see at the very end of that graph, the impacts of that Delta variant did start to reach our region, started to reach our county, and we started to see an increase. So at its low point in kind of late June, we were down in the range of 8 to 10 new cases per day in our county. We are now hovering just under 100 new cases per day in our county. So that puts us in a similar spot to where we were just before school started last year. Again, looking at this graph, you can see at the very end, it has started to show a little bit of a plateau. It had been increasing. It has leveled off at the moment. The optimism is that it'll continue to be stable or start to decrease. Of course, we can't predict that. We might see once students are back in school, we might see that those numbers start to go back up. They might start to go back down. That is simply something we're going to have to keep an eye on. So again, looking at these different data points, the one thing that we will know for sure is once we have students in our schools, we will be able to break this down even more specifically to what are we seeing in our school buildings. And that means what are we seeing not just at overall, but we're able to see those ages that are required to wear masks. How many cases are we seeing, and are we seeing any spread to those close contacts? We look at our ages where masks are not required. Not only, again, will we have to monitor how many cases and quarantines are resulting, but we'll also have to take. We'll also have to.
Excuse me. Thank you.
We will also have to keep an eye not just on the number of cases and potential quarantines, because as Dr. Rumpus mentioned, we want our kids in school. We don't want to see large numbers of kids missing school because of being close contacts. But in addition, the bigger concern would be if we started to see spread from student to student. So last year, we were very, very successful in seeing extremely low numbers of school spread. We would ideally see that again this year. We will have to keep a close eye on that. So next steps for us, we will continue to communicate regularly with our health department, talking about the trends we're seeing in our schools, the data we're seeing. As we all know at this point, the schools in our county have ultimately adopted different approaches to this situation going into the school year. We will not only monitor those impacts within our buildings, but we'll be in contact with those other districts to understand the impacts that their decisions are showing as well. So all of that will help to continue to inform us. We're going to continue to watch not just positive cases and numbers of quarantines, but as I mentioned, really concerned if we were to start to see any spread. I do need to make it clear that regardless of any of the mitigation strategies, so not just masks, all of the other things Dr. Rumpus talked about tonight as well, all of those in place at this time could change. This pandemic has showed us from the very beginning that we need to be responsive. We need to be willing to adapt and adjust when we see when our data tells us to. And so going forward, any of these things may change in the near future or further into the school year. So lots of conversations specifically about masks and conversations about the timing of our announcements and everything else. All it shows is that we need to be responsive to what the data is showing us and to what the situation is showing us. And so he mentioned earlier, we will start the year with the mask mandate on the grades that we have it for. As of that September 17th date, we will have to review that. Actually, the night before at the board meeting, we'll have another conversation with the board about what we're seeing in our data. We would have to decide what to do then. It's also possible before that, we might have to look at our older ages. If we're seeing spread in our schools, and talk about introducing masks there as well as a mandate. Those are things that are just realities that may have to come, and may have to come quickly if we start to see concerns. Safety of our students, safety of our staff has to remain a top priority. And if we start to see any evidence that is causing us concern there, we need to be ready to react. I do commit to saying we would like to make our decisions at the narrowest possible level. So if we see an impact in just a single classroom or a single building, we can react at that level as opposed to district-wide decisions every time we see something. So it is possible that we'll see things that cause a district-wide decision. However, we will be as narrow as possible when we can. All of this, as far as the masks on our students up through 6th grade, we will revisit that at that September 17th time. We will not change that mandate before then. The rest of the ages, if we needed to move in a different direction ahead of that board meeting, we'll have to consider what the data shows us. The last piece I want to talk about is COVID leave. So last year, throughout the year, we, along with many other districts and other employers, offered COVID leave to our employees. As we entered this summer, the initial conversation based on both vaccine availability and the severely decreasing numbers of COVID in our community led us to the conclusion, along with many of our neighboring school districts, that when the COVID leave expired at the end of June, that we would not continue it after that point, and which means employees would have to use their own sick leave if they missed work because of COVID. Just literally in the last couple days, we've started to see different districts around reversing those decisions and going back to offering COVID leave. We would not like to hurry into a decision. There's a lot of details that you have to put in place with COVID leave. We wouldn't want to rush into just revisiting that in a 24-hour period and putting something in place. So what we do commit to at this point is we will continue to track all of the COVID data as we did all last year, not just for our students, but with our employees, and what impact our leave policies are having. If, as we move into the future, this could be at our next board meeting, it could be further into the school year, if we start to see that a change is really needed for our COVID leave policy, we would bring that to the board at a future meeting for approval. The other thing to note is, at that point, we could also recommend to apply it retroactively. If we were to choose to do that at that point, you know, anybody who had to use their own leave early on, if we made that decision later, could retroactively have that leave replaced. We are not interested in doing something that is harmful for our staff, but we're also not interested in rushing a new decision with a quick turnaround that could leave some holes in the plan. And so we'll continue to watch that. We'll continue to keep an eye on what that does for our staff and be ready to respond in the right ways down the road. So that being said, we've covered the mitigation strategies going forward with the start of school. We've covered the current data in our county. We will continue to watch that. Any questions we can answer for you?
I have a statement as well as a question. So or a vaccine. So how are we going to handle that and make sure that what's happening in this room is not happening in our classrooms, because it is unacceptable?
So we have in recent weeks been working with our principals on this exact topic, especially at those ages where masks are optional. And so we understand that students who choose to wear a mask need to be able to make that decision comfortably and not worry about being treated in different ways by other students, and vice versa. And so we've been working with our principals to be ready for that. At our younger ages where masks are mandatory, they will be required, and those administrators are prepared to work with parents through those concerns. But it will be required of those students to attend school. And so that's a separate question than what you asked, but we have been working with our principals to be ready for those scenarios. You know, we hope and plead with our community to work with us on this. Our number one goal here is successful school year for all of our students and staff. That means not just the safety of COVID, but the safety of an atmosphere where learning is going to happen, and working with our families to make sure that our kids are ready to come in and learn free of those distractions to the extent possible.
My question is simple. When you were talking about the leave, the COVID leave, I heard you say, and I just want to make sure that it's clarified, that in the event that we decide to go back, that we will make it retroactive. So if we decide to go that route, then we would have, if a teacher was out on leave, we would go back if we put that into place and give them the COVID leave, correct?
Yeah, so we have the ability to do that. We will
Okay.
track everything as we go, and if in the future we decide that, yes, we need to go back to a COVID leave, providing COVID leave, part of that recommendation would address whether or not we felt at that time it needs to be retroactive, but we will have tracked that all along. We will maintain that ability to make it retroactive, And so if we end up in that boat, we can still go back and take care of our employees.
Okay, and then my second, I just kind of want to piggyback on what Mrs. Walker said. I want to make sure our kids feel safe in our buildings and that nobody feels bullied or that they're making the wrong decision.
Are there any other board comments or questions? I want to thank Dr. Hoven and Dr. Rumpus for the effort that they put into this presentation. And it's not an easy decision. It's a lose-lose no matter what you do. But I want to thank them for the effort they're putting into this. And we all know that having kids in our classroom is the best place for them to be, for their best place for them to learn. And every decision we make is trying to keep them in a classroom so that they can get the education that they all deserve. Okay, our next item is the consent agenda. I just want to remind everybody on the consent agenda, it covers a number of items. So if you're coming to the board wanting to know what those are, make sure you look those up before you come to the meeting. The purchases over $7,500 is very similar. Tonight's consent agenda has 6 items. The purchases over $7,500 has 40 items. So you'll need to look those up before you come in or if you have a specific question. So I'd like to have a motion to approve the consent agenda items for August 19th, 2021 as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Okay, the next item is purchases over $7,500. Motion to approve the purchases over $7,500 as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
No, we can discussion.
Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. Mr. Supple, I noticed one of the things on there was the purchase of 3 vehicles for the district. Could you just, I know that we've seen that before, could you just give me a little bit of an explanation of how we go ahead and decide the age of our vehicles and when they need to be replaced?
Yes, thanks, Mrs. Stiglich. The district has over 50 vehicles that help to serve the Facilities and Operations Department, the warehouse operations, our food service department, it's our grounds department. And so we do try to replace a number of those each year in order to keep them up. Our current fleet is the average age within the fleet. The vehicles are about 10 years old. The average mileage on vehicles is around 60,000 miles. And so we do try to get as much mileage as we can, as many years as we can out of our vehicles. The vehicles that were being replaced right now, we're replacing the oldest of the vehicles within the fleet, and then 2 of the vehicles that we use specifically for snowplow or for snow removal are being replaced because that while that vehicle might be serviceable for some other purpose, it's not serviceable for moving snow. And so we want to make sure that we're able to keep our schools open, that we aren't risking having a snow day because we aren't able to keep our parking lots and so forth cleared. So it is you will continue to see a number of vehicles come for approval as we move through the years because with 50 vehicles, it takes a while to get all of those replaced. But we do try to, again, I think our average age and average mileage would speak to how much service we get out of the vehicles that are used within the daily operations for our district.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Next up is our monthly financial report. I'd like a motion to approve the financial statements as presented.
So, second.
Mr. Supple?
Thank you, Mr. Hain. I want to start by giving a very big shout out to all of the people in our human resources and finance department. We have just implemented a new financial software system, and that is a tremendous undertaking. As Mrs. Simpkins will attest, our staff members have been working very, very hard, very long hours, in order to try to get everything correct and done in a timely way as we're learning a very new system. You'll notice that in the reports tonight, both for the accounts payable and also for the financial statements, some of the reports that you're accustomed to seeing look a little bit different because we're producing them out of our new financial software. So again, on behalf of myself and Mrs. Simpkins, big shout outs to our staff for all the tremendously hard work they've done to get us to this point. They really are a fantastic group of people. When Dr. Hoven and I presented the fiscal year 21 budget to the board back in June of 2020, it came with a very significant deficit, but also a commitment on our part to do everything that we could within that fiscal year to keep that deficit as small as possible. I've gone into quite a bit of detail in the memo, and I won't repeat that here, but just a couple of highlights I will say is that our revenue, we benefited. Our revenue came in just shy of 2% greater than what was budgeted. Now we have a large budget, so that's a large dollar amount. But really the expense side is where we can take a little bit of congratulations on our efforts to keep our expenses as low as possible. Expenditures were just about 4.5% less than budgeted. The net effect is that we ended the year with a deficit, but it was a $2 million deficit for our operations, which is significantly less than what we had shown to the board when they adopted the budget in June of 2020. We did make a capital transfer, a transfer to the Capital Projects Fund, as we do in many years. But taking that into consideration, our ending fund balance at the end of the year is 14.8%, so just below the targeted level by board policy. So shout out to all of the people across the district who really made a concerted effort during the year to be conservative in their spending so that we could try to position ourselves as best as possible. Now, we still ended the year with a deficit. So it's good news, but it's not a completely rosy picture. But I just wanted to highlight that just to let you know that the commitment that we made to you, I think we've done our very best to meet that, and we've ended the year in a much better position than what we anticipated when the board approved our recommendation to adopt the budget in June of 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Supple. Any questions from the board? No questions. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is a motion to approve the 2020-2021 Annual Secretary of the Board Report as presented. Okay. Are there any questions? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is Superintendent Comments.
Thank you. I'm excited that we are just a few days away from welcoming all of our students back for another school year. They are the reason we exist and why we make the decisions we make. In recent months, the district has been accused of many things, some of them downright hateful and unequivocally false. We are here for students, all of them. We will continue to move forward in ways that support all of our students. Accusations about critical race theory that claim we are going to create racial division and cause our white students to feel guilty about being white are scare tactics aimed at advancing an anti-equity agenda. Of course, we would never do those things. Again, our entire existence revolves around students, all of them. We would simply never do anything to cause harm to our students or their relationships with each other. We have attempted to meet with some of the leaders of this movement to equip them with the facts about what we are and are not doing. In most cases, these conversations seem to make no difference. The accusations continue and become louder, with facts and reality seemingly unimportant to the agenda at hand. The Francis Howell School District has a proud history of academic excellence, and that will not change. We want to do everything in our power to help our students grow and be successful, all of them. Issues of equity will not go away because it is what our students need, all of them. I want to say very clearly that we are not here to indoctrinate students or to advance political agendas. We are here to create critical thinkers and problem solvers who are equipped with a wide range of knowledge on many topics. Lumping every topic of equity under the umbrella of critical race theory and accusing us of hurting kids is another scare tactic designed to stop us from helping our students grow. All of them. I am incredibly proud of the steps we are taking, and I am proud of those in our district doing this difficult work. I am pleased to see so many people in our community newly engaged in what our district is doing. I invite all of you to stay engaged, ask questions, and talk to us about the exciting things we are doing. We want to work with our community. We are not hiding anything, and we are committed to being transparent. Don't let the unfounded public accusations cause you to start believing that we are not here to do what is best for kids. All of them. There is one thing I know to be true. Every single person in this community wants the best for our schools. This increased level of community engagement can serve as a great path forward to show that we all share a common goal, that everything we do is for the good of our students. All of them. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Board of Education comments. Anybody have any comments? Director Walker?
Surprised me again. It was talked about earlier tonight about building bridges, and so I just wanted to make a statement about that is we all choose the words we use, and our words can be helpful or they can be hurtful. So when we talk about building bridges, I want us to all remember that we have a choice, and when we are speaking to each other, we should remember to try and be helpful.
Well, my comment was simple. I wanted to thank everybody for the emails that I have gotten and to apologize for not answering every single one. I haven't had the ability to do that. It's not, have some other things going on. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation. So moving forward, I am sorry. We do love hearing from our patrons, and I will try in the future to do a better job. I just wanted to publicly say that. Thank you.
Any other comments? I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I also want to thank everybody for the emails. Without those 20 or 30 emails, I might be able to watch some TV at night, but I want to thank you for that. I want to thank our staff, our administrators, our teachers for having our buildings ready, being prepared for students coming in the school on Monday. And I want to thank our students for showing up and doing their part. And I also want to thank our community, the parents of our community, for trusting us to educate their children and that. So I just want to thank everybody for that and look forward to a wonderful school year. And with that, no other comments, I'd like a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
All in favor?
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It was Michelle.